By the time we got our big boat and we sailed down the east coast of Australia, we just loved it. We just had the best time. And I had a glimpse into what I wanted for our future. I'm like, I want to do this every day. We just couldn't get enough. So we made a plan and we went, you know what, let's make this happen. Let's work out a way where we can just go and have every day together and enjoy life because it's so short. And they're going to move out and it's not going to be the four of us forever.
So that's Sara from Sailing Catalpa. Sara, along with her husband and 2 children, have been sailing the world as a family for over 8 years. And if you've ever wanted to engage in the sail life or simply curious to know what it's like to live this lifestyle as a family, then you need to keep watching. Some of the topics we cover are reflection on the last 8 years of sailing full-time, the highs and lows of sail life, how the family dynamics are affected by this lifestyle, and how other families can get started on their own sail journey. Hopefully you've enjoyed this chat because I had an absolute blast. And if you want to learn more about the Rices, I'll leave their social links in the description and the pinned comments. Let's get into it. Okay, Sara, so tell us a little bit more about yourself and your family.
So we are a family of 4. We're from Australia. We left Australia in 2017 and decided to go sailing the world. The decision happened a little bit before that, but yeah, we've pretty much lived on a boat for nearly 9 years, which is not normal for a lot of people. So yeah, that's our story.
That's absolutely amazing. We've lived in some pretty small hotels and I can't imagine doing that, living in a confined space for so long. It's absolutely amazing. So there's obviously a lot of people out there that like the idea of being on a sailing boat and sailing full-time as a family or not, but just sailing full-time. How do you go from liking the idea to actually pulling the trigger and going, yep, we're doing this?
Well, funny story. We had our small boat for a year or 2 and we decided right away, we knew we needed a bigger one, but at the time we didn't have the money for it. So it was a little bit further down the track. Bella was 8 and Taj was 9 or 10. So it was in 2014. We looked at doing a charter boat in the Whitsundays in Australia. We thought, okay, let's go and actually see if the family would like a bigger boat, like see if we like the lifestyle. And so we looked into it and the holiday itself was going to cost, it wasn't cheap. So Lee's always looked at boats. He's just always looked at them, you know, dreaming, and he knew it was on the market and he found a boat that was kind of cheap, but still not what it was going to cost for this holiday. Anyway, he gave me a number and said, if you can get it for $15,000, let's just buy the boat and we'll just go sailing and see how we like it and then we can sell it or whatever happens. Anyway, long story short, I rang the guy, told him our story and he accepted and we bought a boat in Magnetic Island in Townsville, and it was purely a boat to just sail back from Townsville down the east coast of Australia to our home to see if we liked it. And yeah, we were on that boat for 8 years. So we really liked it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you know, before you started sailing life, you had a traditional, normal life ashore, like the rest of us. So did you have any fears or trepidations going from the traditional life that you had up until the point you bought the boat and started sailing it to moving to being a full-time sailing family on the seas?
Well, I didn't have any fears as such. I think that the hardest thing was the kids' education. I guess that was a fear. That was kind of scary for me to take them out of school. Not for what I thought. It was a little bit intimidating for other people. So their opinions, what are you doing? You're insane. Yeah, that was the biggest thing is like, you know, you're taking your kids out of school and what you're going to teach them. I'm not a teacher. I don't know how to teach kids at school. And so that for me was probably the biggest thing. I had a little bit of a fear. I didn't fear the ocean. I didn't fear about leaving or, you know, this was my dream. I was like, I am in. But the whole taking the kids out of school and educating them, it was a challenge to get my head around for sure.
It's funny you say that because I don't think it's just a sailing thing. I think that's just a universal parents that are taking on part like education. Because I say that a lot to people that ask me about education. We had the business down packed, we had the logistics sorted, but then I spent a disproportionate amount of time researching world schooling and teaching kids because I was like, that's the only bit we don't have, sorted before we left. But it works itself out, right?
Absolutely. That's what I tell people all the time is everyone has this question, and this is probably my most asked question since we we have done YouTube or, shared our story is people that have children and they want to know what we did. What's your curriculum? What did you follow? How did you do it? All of the things. And my answer is always do what works for your family, because what works for someone else is not going to work for you all the time. So it's really trial and error. You start off one way like we did and it'll just change. It's just how it is. So if you embrace it and understand that the kids are learning no matter where they are in the world, no matter what they're doing, and really embrace that, the fear goes. You start to embrace
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So how did you prepare the kids for this lifestyle change? Obviously, it's a big change from being on the shore to now this is your home for the next 9 years. So how did you prepare them for this lifestyle? And were Taj and Bella excited, or were they initially hesitant of going and living full-time on a sailing boat?
Well, we had that first sailing boat, like I told you, they were really young. And ever since then, we told them that we were going to sail the world one day. So I don't know, they were prepped from a very young age. Taj started school, he told his teacher on the first day that I'm not going to be here long, we're going to buy a boat and sail the world. So the whole school thought we were crazy from the very start. Thank God we actually left, because they just thought...
Oh, this Taj, can you keep saying this, Sara?
But yeah, no, we left at a good age. I think for them, they were the first time, and when they left school was Bella was 8 and Taj was 10 or 11. No, it must have been 10. So they were still, I like to think, as young enough they had friends, but they didn't have like a social thing outside of our family social network kind of thing. They had friends that they'd go and hang out with, but it wasn't like high school, and it wasn't, I don't know. I think that because we talked about it for so long, they were just ready. And when we said, this is it, we're going to do it, they were so excited. They knew what the lifestyle entailed. They were so happy to not go to school. So yeah. That age is definitely a lot easier than trying to tell a teenager that you're going to rip them out of your hometown and you're going to live on a small boat with your parents. So I think age. Yeah.
Oh, that's super interesting, because our kids, I feel like, we're on this grand adventure doing a whole bunch of stuff, but I think the thing they like the most about it is they don't have to go to traditional school. Out of all the places and things we visited, that's the thing that they get excited the most. But so let's talk about rituals and routines for a sec, because I found we've spoken to a lot of families now, and a lot of times little rituals and routines just keep that sort of family bond together. Do you guys have any specific rituals or routines that you try and, you establish to try and keep like strong family bonds with each other? So what do you think the secret is to you guys just loving spending time with each other?
Have fun. Go and do the things that we all love together, and don't let your kids being your kids stop you doing what they love doing. Go and do it with them. Like, go surfing, go scuba diving, take them on adventures, and make it about the whole family. So I think the difference when you're traveling together, because we are, quite often just us as a family, you really have to, it's nice that you are doing everything all together, and I think you get used to it. And I think this time that we have with our kids is so short that I am so grateful that I've had so much time with them, and I love it.
Yeah, I imagine that, being in those close quarters and just being in each other's company so much, you really see the warts and all of every single person in your family. It's much like traveling full time through Asia like we're doing, We've learned more about each other as people in the last 7 months, 8 months than my wife and I have learned in the last 20 years, because it's like you're in each other's pockets all the time.
Yeah.
And I think there's strength there. It will either make or break you. And if it makes you, then you'll be better for it, right?
Yeah,
Let's talk about schooling for a sec, because obviously you brought that up and it's a question we get asked a lot, and I'm sure people are super interested to hear how you go about it. So how did you manage schooling for Taj and Bella while you were on the seas and, out and about? Because obviously, when you're alongside, it's a little bit easier to do logistically, but what did you do for, the transits and places where maybe internet's not that good? What did schooling look like for them growing up?
So when we left Australia, when they started homeschooling, was 2016, and internet-wise, Australia was not the greatest place. So we were registered homeschoolers, and we bought the textbooks and had all of it in books. So they had a set amount they did every day, and we did that for probably the first 3 or 4 years. It was we just followed the Australian curriculum, and I adjusted it so that by the end of it, they were pretty much just doing maths, English. Yeah, maths and English, making sure they could read and and write and do all the basic things. It was what it came down to eventually. In the end, we'd started dwindling off things because I was just like, oh, look, you're learning way more out here than me trying to do a science project out of this book with you. Like, let's go scuba diving and see the creatures under the ocean and learn some stuff that you're interested in. So it had changed over the years, and also I got to know how the kids learn and how what they learned very differently. So not all kids are the same, and you learn that when you take them out of school and you start understanding how they learn individually. So that for me was interesting, and we had different teaching styles for both of the kids. So yeah, it gradually went into something different. And the last few years, our kids are like, Taj is 18 now, so he's been doing his own thing for probably mostly 2 years. And Bella's 16 and she's doing her own stuff as well. So yeah, the end, it was kind of unschooling is probably what you would associate with what people like to give things names. So I guess it was probably closer to that. So we started off homeschooling. It got gradually into what they know of learning. I really didn't want them to not want to learn. I didn't want them to hate school, hate learning. And that's not the reason why we pulled them out of school. So we went down that whole path of, what are you interested? Let's do that, and let's find out how you can do it, because ultimately I'm only going to be around here for this long, and I don't want you to stop learning.
Yes.
You've got your whole life to learn. So let's instill some good stuff now so that you want to do that in the future. But yeah.
100%. And I think that's one of the benefits of maybe controlling that schooling, is that the art of making someone smart is not just teaching them reading, writing, arithmetic and stuff. It's like teaching them the ability to find their own information when they need it, and so they can form their own critical thoughts.
Absolutely.
And, we're doing the same thing. We're just focusing on English and maths, and we're just letting the rest of Liam the other day, he completely surprised me. So he reads a lot of books, and he's got these comprehension books, and one of them must have been about Machu Picchu, because someone brought up Machu Picchu, and he goes, oh, did you know that was made so that the Incan kings could escape? If someone attacked them, they could go up into the mountains and hide. I was like, no, I did not know that. And
didn't know that either.
Yeah, I was like, that's really cool. I'm glad you learned that, because that's the kind of stuff that, makes you a good learner. It doesn't matter about the facts. So that brings up another good point that gets spoken about a lot in travel circles, and is one of the main reasons people don't want to travel like how you're doing it, how we're doing it, and that is socialization of children. It's a topic that's brought up a lot. And, how does Taj and Bella feel about that? Have they, do they ever miss like traditional schooling and having friends like that, or having a stable group of friends? How have you handled that part of it, and how have they handled that part of it?
So yeah, we had a lot of time where they didn't have, we were traveling on our own because we were in quite remote areas. So there wasn't any other boats, or if we met boats, they didn't always have kids on board. But we did have times where they had friends, and they were usually a little bit younger. And it didn't really matter. I actually really like the fact that something about boat kids, doesn't really matter the ages of them. They all hang out with whoever, and they're quite happy to hang out with adults and have conversations. And I feel like they, mature a little bit earlier into a conversation. It's nice for them to have kids around their age, absolutely. But it's also makes them, they can go and talk to anybody, and they have been for a long time. And so when we do meet kids their age, it is really nice for them to have that. But I don't think a lot of people worry about it, and they think, they're not going to be very social. And I think it's the opposite. I think they're more social. I know me growing up, I had the same set of friends and I lived in the same neighborhood. So way in hell I would go and talk to anybody else. Like, I was quite happy to stay in that little group zone. And so I would call myself less sociable than somebody who'd grown up traveling the world and talking to other cultures and talking to other people and making friends every second week. And people come and go out of your life. They're very resilient. It's taught them a lot. But yes, I'm sure them having a stability of friends, they have missed out on a part of that. They have definitely not grown up in the traditional life. I don't think they regret it, and we have talked about it before. But as they got older, we would say, you guys want to go back? Do you want to go to high school? You want to do this and that? And they said, no. They're like, I would have been fine if I was there, but I don't want to go from this to that. So, but their choices, no, they didn't want to go and do that. But if they didn't ever leave, I'm sure they would have loved having a regular group of friends. It is what it is. You can't really, I don't know. It's a really hard question. So yeah, I hope that answered it.
No, that was perfect. And do you feel like, because obviously I could tell that you're quite gregarious and you're what people like, I'd imagine you're one of those people that is happy to just go up to sort of anyone and say hello. I'd imagine your husband Lee is the same. Do you feel like that is part of the reason your kids are so happy to just go with the flow and speak to other kids, speak to other parents and things like that, because you guys are kind of like that as well?
Yeah, it's probably a big part of it. And it's also all that they've known. So yeah, I think, they meet new people all the time. So it's a skill that they've just picked up on, I guess, over the time as well. We were really lucky in COVID that we met another boat that had kids the same age as our kids. And we spent nearly, I think it was a year and a half together sailing around. And that was amazing. So they had a little bit of stability for a little while, even though we were all traveling together. It was like having, your best friends with you all the time. It was really, really special for everybody. We love that as a family. So you have moments like that when you're sailing. You get, you can just meet somebody and be there, like they feel like family so instantly. It's like you have this, I don't even know how to explain it, but once you find, like you click with somebody that you meet on the water and it's like, boom, they're just,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's something different. It's really special.
Have you seen the kids evolve and grow into, because they're adults, they're young adults now, right? So, and adults. Do you feel like, have you seen like the kids grow and evolve directly as a result of this sailing life? You've seen other kids, you have friends and family and things like that. Do you feel like the sailing life has really had an effect on the children as they become adults?
Yeah, absolutely. They are super resilient. I feel like a lot of kids, when we go back home and visit, they're not used to change. They're not used to, something gets upset in their world and they just lose the plot. It's like they're very comfortable. Our kids are very used to being uncomfortable. It's just this lifestyle. We move randomly. We get, something happens or we get broken down. We have to stay somewhere for longer than we've planned, or they miss out on doing things because of the weather. We've got to leave. We didn't say goodbye to certain people. You do that enough, you really get quite resilient. And I guess, I don't know. I think that is a positive thing. I know as an adult, I'm more resilient and they're way more resilient than I am. So growing up that way, yeah, I think that's a big bonus for them. Their personalities have changed. They are their own people. I mean, they haven't been influenced incredibly by kids at school. I mean, they didn't have the whole little friend group that they got put in that box and you're this, you're that, They got to think what they wanted about themselves. They got to do what they wanted, whether no one said, oh, you're too old to be doing that or whatever. We let them be kids as long as they could. And at the same time, they had to grow up quicker because they had responsibilities living on the sailboat. So, it was give and take. I think they've definitely benefited and they are incredible. I mean, I'm biased, but I think they're absolutely incredible. And yeah, a big part of that is from this lifestyle for sure.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. That's part of the reason we're doing it too. I speak to other people about this and, you need to create stimulus to create outcomes, right? So like, it's the same with us, our kids. The whole reason one of the reasons we started this trip was, Liam, our oldest child, went up to us and said, Dad, I want to switch. And I was like, okay, well, tell me what. He goes, oh, well, all my friends have one. I want one as well. I was like, yep, that's not the attitude we're having, kid. So it was like, let's create some artificial, stress in your life. And traveling is one of the best ways to do it because it's not like you're creating stress through poverty, like some kids in the Philippines, they're resilient because they've lived in real bad poverty. But you can create that resilience other ways as well. That's a little bit safer and not as, okay, well, we got nothing, kids. So yeah, that's a really good point because I think that is a common thread amongst a lot of families that just travel full time, full stop. There's just stresses that are involved with their travel days and, like you said, leaving places and things like that just naturally build character. And it's nice to hear you reinforce that thought process as well. So another question I have is unexpected challenges. So obviously you were sailing part time, on the weekends and things like that, a couple of weeks at a time. Was there any unexpected challenges you faced going from sailing as a casual recreational sailor to making it full time and doing it all the time?
I don't know. I think I was just so stoked to be on the boat all the time. I just wanted to embrace every little second. So I can't remember, to be honest. It was, yeah, we had like a good stint of not having a boat. So by the time we got our big boat and we sailed down the east coast of Australia, you know how beautiful the east coast of Australia is. We just loved it. We just had the best time. And I had a glimpse into what I wanted for our future. I'm like, I want to do this every day. I love hanging out with them every day. I wanted to spend all my days with my kids and my husband, and we just couldn't get enough. So we made a plan and we went, you know what, let's make this happen. Let's work out a way where we can just go and have every day together and enjoy life, because it's so short and they're going to move out and it's not going to be the four of us forever. So that for me is what, it was definitely in my mind, and it didn't matter what was going on or what the challenges were. I was like, I'm in. So
that's amazing. That's absolutely, that is such the best attitude to have, because I'm sure it's probably just a combination of PTSD and like being so long ago that you just like mentally blocked out all those bad first month where you're trying to work it all out. You're like, I don't. Yeah, it is.
You forget how painful it is. You go again.
Yes, 100%. But it's look, the whole thing with this interview series is we want to inspire people to do it. So if you just spent 20 minutes talking about all the bad things about sailing, it might put a few people off. But let's talk about this new boat.
I'll remember them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yep, it's time to go home. We're done. So the transition from Catalpa to Catalpa 2, it sounded like it was a significant one, because I like to do a bit of research before I jump on these calls, and it sounds like it was a big move for you guys. So what prompted you to switch boats in the first place?
So like I said at the beginning, the boat that we bought initially was not a forever boat. It wasn't even a blue water, which means crossing oceans boat. It was a yacht that we made sailable. It was in a pretty bad way, and the reason we kept it because we did it up so that we could sell it. And in that process, we couldn't find another boat in the budget that we had that we preferred. So we would have had to stayed on the Gold Coast and worked more to buy a better boat, or we went now and just had money to live for a little while, and we decided to do that. So the boat, it needed work, and we did work we did a lot to that boat, but you can never make the boat. It was 43 feet and it was only ever going to be 43 feet, no matter how many beds we made in there, no matter how many shelves and places we made to put all our crap. It was still smaller than what we'd liked. So the kids are older, and Bella didn't have her own room. So we'd been looking for a new boat for years. Like, it wasn't just a split decision. We'd been looking, for a really long time before COVID. And we were in Malaysia for a year. Lee flew back to work because we made a decision, okay, let's buy a boat here. This is a really good place to sell the boat and buy a boat, and then we can continue sailing the world. Then COVID happened, and again, we thought, you know what, let's just do what we need to do to the boat and just keep going. We tried to cross the Indian Ocean because the only country that was open in COVID was the Seychelles. And friends of ours were going across the Indian, and we decided that we could do it. So we left Malaysia, a country that was happy to have us, and ventured off into the ocean, and our boat didn't really hold up. So we went through some big seas, initially crossing over to Indonesia, and made the decision once we got to Indonesia that the boat wasn't fit for crossing the ocean, which I think was a really smart thing looking back. We were devastated at the time, but it was a smart decision. And we always knew, I don't know if you know much about sailing boats, but our old boat was as ferro cement, which it just doesn't sound right anyway. It was a ferro cement boat, and that was the end of that moment. We went, well, this boat can't get us around the world. What are we doing? So that was the moment where we seriously went, we need to get into a bigger boat. It was COVID. We were illegally floating in the middle of the ocean because no countries would take us. So we had a great time actually for 4 or 5 months. And ended up back in Indonesia. And then we had the next 18 months with that family that I was talking about earlier, and just had an incredible time. I'm sorry, that story really elaborated. But we sold the boat later, and then we bought a boat sight unseen in San Diego because it was really cheap, because it was the only other boat that we'd seen that suited our family and that was in our budget. So we could obviously go and buy a beautiful big sailboat. It's not that hard if you have a lot of money. But if you don't have a lot of money, you really got to look. And we'd been looking for a very long time. And we found one other boat that we tried to buy a few years before this one, and it didn't work out. So this one popped up, and we made the rash decision to sail back to Australia with our friends and jump on a plane and come and see this boat.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It sounds like it worked out though, which is the main thing. It must have been pretty scary to be crossing the Indian, because I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy for almost 10 years, and I've crossed the Indian Ocean a lot. And it can get pretty hairy. It can get pretty hairy when it storms up through there. It must have been pretty scary being on a small boat that's probably not designed for the ocean, knowing that you're like in the middle of nowhere. And if there's something does go wrong, there's not really much you or anyone can do at that like immediately. So yeah, talk us about that. Talk us, and obviously only if you're comfortable doing it. Talk us through that crossing and why it was like, okay, it's not going to do what we need to do anymore, and we have to switch.
Yeah, it was just the actual damage. I mean, we'd been in rough water before, and we all don't really have that big a problem with it. As long as the captain, Lee, my husband, is comfortable, we are all good. We trust him 100%, probably a little bit too much. But he was the one who made the decision in the end, and it was because of the damage. I mean, the boat had a big crack down the front of it, and that we'd only just started. So to be out, it would have taken us 3 weeks to get across, and if that was the beginning, I mean, who knows what would have happened. I mean, we could have been fine, but that does go through your brain, and it was just Lee and I. Maybe we would have had a go, but having the kids on board, it was really important that we keep them safe and don't do anything too outrageous.
Yeah.
Depends what that means for some people, but yeah, it was a devastating moment as well, because we'd really planned and we were so excited. And one of Lee's dreams is to go to Africa and do safari, and we're like, we're going to make this happen, and we were so pumped for it. And yeah, it was a really devastating moment, to be honest, and it was kind of scary because we didn't know what was happening to the world. Looking back, obviously everything works out, but when you're in it, it's pretty scary.
I bet. Yeah, 100%. So let's talk about sailing life in general, because I know there's going to be a heap of people that watch this that, it's one thing to travel around Southeast Asia with backpacks and stuff like that. There's a lot of information about that. But when it comes to sailing life, it's a pretty niche way of traveling. So I really want to ask you some questions because you have a lot of experience, obviously. So let's talk about some of the things people would have to consider if they're going to tackle this lifestyle. And let's start with preparation. So for someone looking at beginning like sailing life, like what you guys are doing, what are some of the first steps in terms of like the basics of learning how to sail? Would you recommend that someone learn how to sail first, or is it one of those things you can just jump on a boat and go, let's go and be on your way? Well,
if you're going to follow what we did, that's what we did. I don't suggest it. It really depends on your character, I think. If like my husband grew up on boats, he'd driven fishing boats and he'd been on the water his whole life. So he had that knowledge there. So it wasn't like we were getting on a boat who had never been on a boat before. He had ocean knowledge and how to drive boats, and he wasn't a sailor, but he figured it out along the way. We had a lot of things that happened, but that's another story. I think it would be really smart if you got on other people's boats and just went sailing and learnt a little bit. The thing with sailing is every boat's different. So even if you know how to sail, you're still going to have to learn how to sail your boat to a degree. I mean, there's sailing and then there's sailing your boat. They're all different. So it would be helpful to get on there just to even know that you like sailing. Obviously, if you get seasick, that may be a little bit of a put off. Yeah, just going and getting on as many different boats as possible as well. If I could go back, I think that's what we would probably do, is go on the different boats and try and see what you like before jumping in and just buying a boat and heading off. That if you're smart, you like to plan things out.
Oh, that's amazing advice. How did you guys financially prepare for this shift in lifestyle from living on the land to sailing full time? And was there any hidden costs that people should be aware of if they're going to start traveling full time as a family via sailing, like sailing life?
Yes. There's a lot of hidden costs. We aren't the best financial advisors at all. I'm not going to think for financial advice. Like I said, we traveled on a shoestrings budget. We are big for inspiration. We are go-getters. We'll just drop everything and just head off into the distance into no plan whatsoever. That's more of the people that we are. If you like to plan things, and especially financially, definitely, if you work out a budget, double it, triple it. Don't let it stop you. I mean, there are things that are going to need your attention and you will prioritize them. And there are things that you would like to do. And once you start this lifestyle, especially if you're on a budget, you get to learn that there's a list of things that you'd like to fix. And then there's a list that you need. So you definitely, that fixing list that needs to be done, it really takes over from the other one for sure. But it's a really hard thing to plan for because we've talked to a lot of people that are completely opposite us, are very well organized and have planned financially. They planned their boat. They had spares. They had knew everything, and they still had moments where they were stuck somewhere. They still had to figure out a solution how to get apart when they're in the middle of nowhere. It really is a lifestyle that you can't plan, and you really have to throw out any idea of being able to control every situation. You can't. And I think it's a really great thing because it makes you let go. You really get used to being in a situation that you don't have any control over. And I think that's can be character building. It's frustrating at the time, but it's also, it makes you appreciate things because you have those moments and you're like, you know what, I could have planned that better. But maybe you stopped and you met a family in a village that are now you're friends for life, or you would have seen something that you would have never seen before had you been more prepared and didn't have to wait for a part for 6 weeks. I don't know. I think this lifestyle can be planned and I know people do it. I know that there are people who set budgets, but if you're going to go in and do this lifestyle, is a lot more fun if you could be a little less controlled.
Yeah, just go with the flow, go with the ocean, go where the waves take you, as they say.
Yeah.
So you mentioned obviously you did this on a pretty shoestring budget, and with that comes with some pretty decent wrangling of expenses. So how do you guys manage expenses while living on a boat full time?
So we lived in Asia for 5 years, Southeast Asia, between Indonesia, Malaysia and Thailand, and it is really cheap to live. And that was the reason initially why we chose to sail there, because when we left Australia, we had savings. So we had Catalpa. I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. We had Catalpa and we did her up, and we had savings in the bank, which we could have bought another boat, not a great boat, but we could have bought another boat and then waited, saved up and then gone again. This kind of comes into your question about a budget. We had what we thought would last us a year, maybe 2 in the bank, and we set sail, and by the time we got to the top of Australia to leave, we'd pretty much nearly got eaten our entire budget.
Wow.
So, Australia is expensive, you guys would know that, to live and to cruise compared to Asia. So for us, we left. It wasn't probably the smartest decision, but at the time we had a YouTube channel and we were making enough money to be able to live in Asia. So that wasn't taking into the fact of breaking down or replacing things. We had money to live. So
yes.
We went organized or that. We didn't think that far ahead. But so financially, we worked out what we could live off for the month, and we pretty much just lived off what we were earning. We were living paycheck to paycheck and having an incredible time. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's kind of stressful at the end of the month and you're waiting for that next paycheck, but we had it kind of pretty dialed in. We knew what we could spend. And then if we had an expense of a part breaking or something, we just adjusted it accordingly. And we ate fish and rice and vegetables and went to the markets, and we lived okay. I mean, we were fine. So we made it work. And our YouTube channel has grown, and we're earning more money than we were, and we still live the way that we do. We know that we have to have some money there if we can, try and budget. Yep. That something breaks or something, that there was always something that's going to happen. So for us, it's more about, we live month to month. Even if we have savings, we still live month to month because it's kind of unpredictable. Our lifestyle's a little unpredictable. I mean, if there was an emergency, we had to fly home or we had to do something like that, there's definitely expenses that you don't foresee. So yeah, like I was saying before, it's really it is a tricky one to have a budget and to stick to it. But we've been doing it a long time now, so we're
Totally. Yeah, I suppose if you weren't able to make the numbers work, you'd be back in Australia, wouldn't you? It's if you want this lifestyle enough, you'll kind of just make it work, right?
Mm-hmm. And we did, we stopped in Malaysia, flew back and forth from Australia for about a year. He was doing fly-in, fly-out work in the mines in Australia when we were trying to buy a boat the first time. And so we made that work. We realized, we sat down and we said, hey, we could keep going and doing what we're doing, living month to month in this boat and keep traveling and stay in Asia. And there was nothing wrong with that. But we decided as a family that we wanted to go further and we wanted a bigger boat And so we adjusted accordingly, and Lee sacrificed going back to Australia and working. I stayed in Malaysia with the kids, and he used to fly back and forth until COVID.
Yeah,
And then
put a spanner in the works.
it did.
Let's talk about the family considerations. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of families watching this. So if there's families that are considering this sail lifestyle, what advice would you give them in terms of preparing the children for the shift from shore life to sail life?
My advice would be make sure that they are already 100% on board. If you're forcing your kid to go before and you haven't even left, and they're not really loving the idea, they may turn around and decide that they like it, but it's probably going to be a fight. We were really fortunate that we didn't have to deal with that, but we did meet a lot of families that the kids were not happy and they simply wanted to go back to their lives and back to their friends and back to school. And that happens a lot. So for me and for our family, it was really important that everybody was happy and that we all wanted it. And Lee and I would sit the kids down and say, you want to go back? We'll go back, Dad, and I can do this later. It's not a problem. If you guys want to go back to school, let's do it. So as much as we didn't want to do that, we never had to, but it's definitely something that I don't think there's really advice, or it's really just talking to your kids and saying what they want and giving it a go. I mean, it might be for them, it might not, and you really sometimes you can't understand how the lifestyle is until you actually go and live it. So it's just keeping that open mind, have a go, have a backup plan and go, you know what, guys, if you don't like it, we're going back, and always give them that option. I think if you say, we're taking you out of school and we're going and this is how you're going to live now, it's probably not going to end well. So
yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I think that just goes with travel in general, right? I've met a lot of families on the road and the kids are committed to it because they're kids but you can tell that maybe they want to just go back to what they were doing, which, you've got to take into consideration, right? It's not just you and Lee's dream. It's got to be all of your dreams for it to work for as long as it has for you guys.
And it's really not for everyone.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, not everyone. Yeah, it's like me. I think about this and I hear how awesome it sounds, but I'm also like, I spent 10 years on the water with the Navy. I don't know if I could do, it's obviously a different kettle of fish, but it sounds, I imagine the goods are really good. And like you said, the bads are really bad. Traveling full time, just with backpacks and staying in places, you still get all the real goods, but the bads aren't as bad because there's, you can just change. If your room's not very good or your place you're staying in is not very good, you can always just go to somewhere else. Or, if something's not working, you can always just, there's a lot of alternatives. So, and I like organizing too, which it sounds like if you're going to do the sailing life, it's a little bit more go with the flow. So obviously, your kids were quite young, but they had experienced sailing before you left off on this big trip. But, the big thing that stands out to me is that, it's not as safe an environment as being at home, on the kids, there's water and, kids can, there's inherent dangers of being on the water. Doesn't matter if you're sailing or not. So how can someone help to ensure the safety of their kids, especially at the beginning where they're getting their sea legs, so to speak? Is there anything that you can recommend to a parent to help them get acclimatized to the new environment that they're in?
I think, the kids just their kids are so adaptable. They get used to their environment pretty quickly. Safety-wise, just keep life jackets on. You have tethering lines on a sailboat, so when you're under passage, you can clip the kid or yourself. We wear them at night when we're sailing, but it's just a line that's attached to the boat. We've been really lucky that we've never had any, touch wood, had anything where any emergencies, no one's fallen overboard or anything like that. And we've, touch wood again, we have not had any major injuries that have been, that scary. So I can see how there are concerns, but I don't know. I don't know if we're just being lucky or I don't know. Yeah, we've obviously been lucky, but there's safety precautions to take with certain things, and there's also a way you live. Accidents happen all the time wherever you are, whatever you're doing. So it's just common sense.
Yeah, 100%. And I imagine the kids adapt pretty quickly to the lifestyle. They know where to stand and where not to stand. And they know, I suppose also too, it's just about make sure that the whole family is aware of what to do in an emergency, right? So if someone does go overboard, what is the actual plan? If there's a fire on board, what is the actual plan? I'd imagine that would help a lot as well, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so we're coming towards the end, but I know there's going to be a lot of families here that are pumped, or they're already sold on the idea, but they're just like, okay, well, how do I go from where I am now to getting into this life. So do you guys have any book, like any recommendations on somewhere to start if they're thinking of doing this life? Obviously outside of like going on a boat and trying it and things, but like just, learning more about this lifestyle and things like that.
There's a lot of YouTube channels now that are doing it, and they document a lot of things. I mean, we have a YouTube channel and we've been documenting from the start. Watching those probably gets you a little bit more aware of what the lifestyle is like firsthand from, someone's perspective. It's obviously not everything, but there are, I'm not sure. I don't know sailing things. I'm not a sailor. Just like lifestyle. But I'm sure there is definitely a lot of books out there that I can't recommend because we didn't have any. But just even talking to communities and getting involved in, like, there's lots of Facebook groups and asking questions and reaching out to families that have done it. I think just having a conversation. We have lots of people asking us all the time, can I pick your brain? I'm concerned about this, and what do you think about this? And it's only going to be my opinion, and you have to make the ultimate decision yourself. But talking to people and trying to get a feel for what happens in reality to, assuming. I think most people, if they've decided they want to live this lifestyle, they're going to give it a go anyway. I think it's, you're either in or you're not. And whether it works out, it doesn't always work out. So yeah, my advice is just jump in, guys. Get the boat, go sailing.
just commit and learn it as you go, so to speak.
That's it.
So if you could do it all over again, let's say you've rewound the clock 9 years, you're about to set off on this trip again. Is there anything you would have done differently, knowing what you know now about sailing and life and everything you've done up to this point? Is there anything you would have done differently?
Look, if I could go back and relive our last 9 years, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't regret any of it. And I think all those times, all those challenges, everything, it's made us the people that we are today. In saying that, financially and in, being a little bit smarter and wiser, I would say that we probably didn't make the right decision in the boat that we bought, and we probably could have set off in a better one, and that would have probably set us up to have not a better experience, just a different one. I don't suggest people go and buy a really cheap ass falling apart boat. It could break a lot of people. I mean, I think it made us stronger, but, it would definitely break a lot of people. So, yeah, in saying that, probably buy the best boat that you can afford. And for us at the time, that was it. So, yeah, I don't know. I just live without regrets. Obviously, I've learned a lot, and you can always look back and do things better, but just don't let it stop you. Honestly, if you want to go out and live this lifestyle, do it, make it happen, and you'll find a way. If you're determined, you'll find a way. And use us as an example. We had no money, we made it happen, and we've made it last for 9 years, and we're still going. So, yeah.
And it sounds like you wouldn't change that for the world either. So that's, if you look at the money invested versus the return that you've gotten, it sounds like it's been a worthwhile investment in time, money, energy, effort. And that's what traveling's all about, right? Like it's not about seeing as many countries as you can. It's about going, okay, well, we're going to invest time, energy, and effort into something. Is it going to give us the return we want, which is becoming closer as a family or having experiences that no one can take away from us, whatever that is. And it sounds like you have had a very worthwhile 9 years on the seas from that aspect. Yeah,
we're not rich in wealth wise, but we are definitely rich in memories and experiences and time together. I don't regret it. I would do it all over again for sure.
Amazing. Now, Sara, how can people, if people are interested in learning more about your adventures and just about the lifestyle or have any questions, how can they find you guys?
Well, you can go on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is called Sailing Catalpa. We're also on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all the things. Send us an email, send us a message. I'll reply to you. And our videos, we make them to inspire people to go and show people that you can do it. You don't have to have millions of dollars, and you don't have to wait until you're retired to go out and live your dream. I really encourage people to go and spend as much time with their children while they can. I lost my mum, and when Taj was a baby, I was 21. And that was one of the big reasons why we live for right now. Life's short. You really have to go out and see the world and do the things that you want to do, because you're not going to get that time back. It's going to be gone. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
That's absolutely amazing. And I think that's a very, very good reason to do it. Is that you had, if your kids wanted nothing to do with you as teenagers or, like as adults, at least you've got all these memories you've created together, and you can't put a price on that, right?
No, you definitely can't. I think we have such a tight bond because of our lifestyle, because of the way we've lived, and having all this time together. I'm so grateful that we did what we did.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sara, for jumping on. I'm going to leave all of the links to the Rice family's social media so you can get in touch easy. But thank you so much for jumping on, Sara. I learned a lot. I got an insight into a space that I know no one in. So that was amazing. It's part of the reason I'm doing these podcasts, is to learn about how other people live their life. And thank you so much for jumping on.
My pleasure. I hope I didn't put you off boat life.
No, I think I'm honest enough in myself to know that it's maybe not my thing, but I also have a lot of admiration for people that do it, because I know that it's not an easy life to live, but I'd imagine it's super rewarding. So thank you so much, Sara.
No worries. Thanks.